Jolly stood quietly inside his small apartment, staring at the eviction notice in his hands. The paper felt heavier than it should have, as if it carried the weight of his entire life. As a single father, everything he did was for his son, Leo. He worked long hours, pushed through exhaustion, and sacrificed everything just to give Leo a better future. But a few months ago, everything changed. A serious injury had forced him to stop working, and no matter how hard he tried, he could not keep up with the rent anymore. A firm knock echoed through the apartment. Jolly took a deep breath before opening the door. Standing outside was Clara, the landlord. She was dressed in a luxurious gown, with perfectly styled white fur and gold jewelry that reflected her wealth and status. Her posture was confident, and her expression showed no sign of sympathy. Clara stepped slightly forward and looked into the apartment. She told Jolly that the deadline had passed and that she expected the apartment to be vacated immediately. Her voice was calm but cold. Jolly spoke respectfully, keeping his tone steady. He explained that his injury had kept him from working for a while. He told her he was recovering and would soon be able to earn again. He asked for just a few more days to get back on his feet. Clara shook her head without hesitation. She said she had already given him enough time and could not allow any more delays. She reminded him that business decisions could not be influenced by personal stories. Leo stood nearby, holding tightly onto his small backpack. He looked at his father with fear in his eyes, trying to understand why they were being forced to leave. Jolly gave him a gentle smile and reassured him that everything would be okay. But deep inside, he was not sure how he would make that true. Soon, their belongings were carried outside. Boxes were placed along the sidewalk as dark clouds gathered overhead. Rain began to fall, slowly at first, then heavily. Clothes, toys, and memories were soaked within minutes. Clara stood under an umbrella, watching the process with quiet impatience. To her, this was simply another eviction, another tenant who had failed to meet expectations. Jolly carefully lifted another box, trying not to strain his injured body. As he reached forward, his sleeve rolled back slightly. Clara noticed something unusual. There were burn scars along his arm. They were deep and uneven, clearly the result of something serious. She paused for a brief moment, but quickly dismissed it. She assumed it was part of his past and not something she needed to concern herself with. As one worker lifted an old photo album, it slipped from his hands and fell into a puddle. Clara glanced down at it casually, but then her expression changed instantly. The photograph showed two young children wrapped in blankets. They looked frightened but safe. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Those children were hers. Her hands began to tremble as she picked up the photograph. On the back, there was a date written in faded ink. It was from 5 years ago. The night of the fire. Clara's mind rushed back to that terrifying moment. Flames had consumed her home, and thick smoke had filled every room. Her children were trapped inside while she stood outside, completely helpless. She remembered screaming for help, but no one dared to go in. The fire was too dangerous, until someone ran inside. A man pushed through the flames without hesitation. He ignored the risk and disappeared into the burning house. Moments later, he came out carrying both children. They were unconscious, but alive. Clara had never clearly seen his face. Everything had happened too quickly, and before she could thank him, he had disappeared into the chaos. Clara slowly looked up from the photograph. Her eyes moved toward Jolly. Her voice shook as she asked if he had been there that night. Jolly paused for a moment. He looked at the photograph and then back at Clara. He quietly said yes. The world seemed to stand still. The sound of the rain faded into silence. The man she had just thrown out into the rain was the one who had saved her children's lives. Clara stepped back, completely shaken. Her confident expression disappeared, replaced by shock and guilt. She looked at Jolly again, but this time she saw him differently. She saw not a struggling tenant, but a man who had once risked everything for her family. Her voice trembled as she asked how he had gotten injured. Jolly answered calmly. He said the burns and injuries came from that same fire. He explained that the recovery had been long and painful. He had lost his job during that time, and that was why he had fallen behind on rent. Leo walked closer and held his father's hand. He looked at Clara with quiet confusion. Jolly gently squeezed Leo's hand, trying to stay strong. He had never told this story because he never expected anything in return. Clara's eyes filled with regret. She said she did not know. She said she had no idea who Jolly really was or what he had sacrificed. Jolly gave a small, tired smile. He said it did not matter because he would have done it again without hesitation. Clara felt something inside her break. For the first time, she realized how wrong she had been. She looked at the truck, which was almost fully loaded. If she did nothing, Jolly and his son would leave with nothing. Her voice became urgent. She told the workers to stop immediately. Everyone froze. She admitted that she had made a terrible mistake. She said she had allowed pride and money to blind her. Then, without hesitation, she tore the eviction notice in half. The pieces fell into the rain and disappeared. Clara told Jolly that he could stay in the apartment for as long as he needed. She said there would be no rent until he fully recovered and was back on his feet. Jolly looked at her in silence, unsure of what to say. Clara then offered him something even more unexpected. She offered Jolly a job managing her properties. She said she needed someone she could trust, someone who truly understood responsibility and sacrifice. Jolly stood there, overwhelmed by everything that had just happened. Leo looked up at him with hope in his eyes. After a moment, Jolly slowly nodded. The rain began to soften, as if the storm itself was finally fading away. Clara took a deep breath, knowing she could never undo her actions, but grateful she had been given a chance to make things right. Weeks later, everything had changed. Jolly was working again, Leo was smiling again, and Clara carried a lesson she would never forget. Sometimes the person you overlook is the one who has already given you everything. Like this video if you believe true kindness never asks for recognition.